What's the story, Morning Glory? What's the word, Hummingbird? Thank you so much for clicking on my channel and for joining me for this review of Married at First Sight. I don't know the season and I don't know the episode because I didn't write it down. So we start off with Jasmina and Michael. So this is the episode where they go to their childhood homes so that they can get a glimpse of their partner's childhood, or get a glimpse of their partner's past. And this is also the episode where they write letters to their younger selves and they read it to their partner. So it's a very emotionally heavy episode. So Jasmina and Michael. Jasmina takes Michael to her old neighborhood, and they don't go to her home, but they go to the school that she attended as a child. So it seems like Jasmina probably grew up in some type of an abusive home. Her father was a truck driver, so her father was gone a lot, her biological father. Her biological mother was the one that was doing most of the child rearing up to a certain point, because at some point, I think the mother abandoned her children. So Jasmina talks about how the school that she attended was her safe place. And she got very, very close with a particular teacher by the name of Mrs. Pataski. She says that Mrs. Pataski had made a huge impact on her. And she felt the only time that she really felt safe was at school, because her home life was, I guess, very chaotic. So Michael asks her if she became a teacher because of this particular teacher that influenced her, Mrs. Pataski. And Jasmina thinks about it for a minute and she's like, you know what, I think so. I think she had a lot to do with me becoming a teacher. She also says that it was important for her to become a teacher because she wanted to she wanted to make schools a safe place for other children as they were to her. Now, when I was listening to this, it was like really heartbreaking to think about children who grow up in abusive homes, or who grow up in homes that are not very conducive to, healthy child rearing. That the only place where these children feel safe, if they even have the opportunity to go to school, the only time that they feel safe is when they're in school. And it's just really sad that your home life can be so, so bad that you only feel comfortable is when you're at school. So that was really heartbreaking. So Michael takes her to his old neighborhood. They don't visit his home, but he takes her to the park that he would always go to with his brother. And I'm assuming it's the brother that was killed. So he talks about how his brother would wake him up at 7 o'clock every morning and they would go to the park and spend all day at the park. When it came time to reading letters to their younger selves, I didn't write down too much of what Jasmina's letter was, but I know that it was very, very heartbreaking when she read it. It really touched my heart. What I wrote down for Michael was how he focused on what he would tell his younger self is he would tell his younger self to cherish your mother. When she asks you to go to church, just do it. Just go. Whatever your mother asks you to do, just do it, because you don't know how much time that you have with your parents. And so he really focused on that in his letter, and it was really, really heartbreaking. This was a very emotionally heavy episode. So later on in the episode, Dr. Pepper comes to meet with them, and she wants to know what can be done to fix whatever issues they have so that they can say yes to each other on decision day. So Jasmina tells Dr. Pepper that the turning point for their relationship was when they did the Dr. Viviana exercise. And it was that intimacy exercise where they both had to wear blindfolds and they both had to kind of like rely on each other and trust each other and really hear and feel each other. And it was supposed to break down barriers between them. It was supposed to help them trust each other better. It was supposed to help them be more vulnerable with one another. So she says, Jasmina says that ever since that exercise, their relationship has really improved. They don't argue as much. They, instead of arguing, they talk it out. Their communication has improved. They do feel closer to each other. They do feel more vulnerable with each other. So then they talk about the future and they talk about family planning. So they both are in agreement that they want to start having children in about 18 months. And so Dr. Pepper was like, okay, well, you know what it takes to have children, so how are we doing in that department? And Jasmina is still struggling. And I think that, I don't know if she's putting more into this whole physical connection thing than she needs to, or if she's got some type of an emotional or mental block. against being physically close to Michael, because the more she knows him, the more she actually likes him. You know, she really does like him as a partner. And so I don't understand why she cannot just get over that hump and just try like little things. Now, I think that the experts had told them, you know, start by doing little things. You know, hold hands. They used to kiss each other goodnight, but then that stopped when she said that she really didn't feel anything when they did that. So, I don't know if they started doing that again. I'm hoping that they did, but that is something that they can, because they don't ever talk about what they're doing to have that physical connection. They don't ever talk about that. And so it's almost as if they're not doing anything at all. And if they are, they're not talking about it. So, but that's like one way to start, like kiss each other good night or kiss each other good morning. Or, you know, do something to kind of get closer to your partner. And it seems like that they're not willing to do that. It's almost like Michael would like to, but he's letting her take the lead. And because she doesn't feel that way towards him, nothing happens. So that department is completely dead. But they want to have children together. So I don't know what kind of mental or emotional block that Jasmina has, because I don't think that it is because she's just not attracted to him. I think that she is attracted to him as a person. Like, she's attracted to his soul. She's attracted to the person that he is. And if she would just take that extra step and just do something physical, maybe the that attraction will start. But for whatever reason, they don't want to jumpstart that part of their relationship. Moving on to Olajuwon and Katina. So Katina is very thankful for Olajuwon because he has taken her out of her comfort zone. She was the kind of female that really didn't want to fool with animals. So he got her more comfortable with animals. He got her doing things that she normally wouldn't do, like horseback riding or spending time with the alpacas or whatever they were doing. So Olajuwon ponders about the timeline for kids. So he's thinking about, you know, is he going to have to sacrifice traveling? Is he going to have to and then he talks about how will she be able to keep him interested if she takes on more responsibilities, you know, I guess as a student, as, you know, starting her new career, having children, you know, will she be able to keep him interested? And I feel like Olajuwon is always looking for an excuse of why this relationship won't work. He'll talk a good game. He'll always say something really positive, like, "Oh, my wife has really grown. My wife, you know, she's really improving. My wife is doing what she's supposed to be doing." But then when it comes to the long term, he just starts talking about, "Oh, but she has to still finish school, and can she finish school and have children at the same time?" And I just don't understand him. Like, he talks from both sides of his mouth. But I think the bottom line is, and this is how I've always felt about the relationship, I don't think he's that into her. I don't think that he really sees the future with Katina. I think that he admires her. I think that he does really, really care for her. He really does like her. He may even love her. But I just don't think that he can see himself with Katina for the long run. And I don't think he has any really romantic feelings towards Katina. And as far as their romantic life, I think that they have consummated their marriage, but they just don't want to talk about it. I think Olajuwon has told Katina to not talk about it on camera because he doesn't want to look like a jerk when he makes the decision to not be with her on decision day. Because anything can happen. I mean, there are times when they look like they're really clicking and you're like, yes, this is going to work out for them. But then most of the time, I feel like they're not a good match. So yes, it's very possible that they will both say yes to each other on decision day and they may be married for the rest of their lives. But if I have to put money on it, I'm going to put my money on that they're not going to end up together. I don't know who's going to say yes and who's going to say no, but both of them are not going to say yes. And yeah, I'm putting my money on the fact that they're not going to end up together. And I think that he just doesn't want to appear like a jerk. So they don't talk about their intimate lives on camera. But I think that they have consummated their marriage. That's just my personal opinion. So Katina takes, where does he take her? Olajuwon takes her to his childhood home, his old neighborhood. He says that he grew up in the projects and that it was really rough and tough growing up, where he where he came from, and that's the reason why he has such like a really tough exterior, is because he had to be tough on the streets. So he says this is one of the reasons why, like, I don't want nobody messing with me or playing games with me, because growing up here, you had to like defend yourself against people trying to play you or people trying to take advantage of you. And that's why I guess his justification of why he blew up the way he did when he saw that app on her phone, like, hey, I thought you were playing games with me. So this is the reason, that's the reason why I reacted the way I reacted. Because, when you're growing up in the streets of whatever neighborhood that was, you don't let people play with you. You don't let people take advantage of you. That's how I read it. So, he said that he grew up in a single parent home, and because of his really tough upbringing, this is the reason why he was so driven and he was so motivated, to knock out college, knock out the student loans, start his career, start making money, stack up his paper. That's why he was so motivated to, do all of that, to accomplish all of those things very, very early on. He says that he likes how Katina likes him for who he is. He's not someone that will put on a suit or, name brand clothes or anything like that. And so she looks past all of that and she likes him for who he is. She accepts him. How he shows up is how she accepts him. And so he told her that, he really does appreciate that about her. And then Katina does not take him to her home. She ends up taking him to her church. So church meant a lot to her. She went to church every single Sunday. Her grandmother would take him to church every Sunday, and there was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You went. But she enjoyed church. She said in church she met her best friend who ended up being a bridesmaid at her wedding. So church to her was a very positive experience. It was a lot of fun, and she really did enjoy it. Olajuwon also mentions at this time, because they're sitting in the church that she went to as a child, that she attended as a child, and they're sitting in one of the pews. And so he also says to her that church was also important in his life as well, in his childhood as well. He said that my dad wasn't in the home with us, but he came over every Sunday and he took us to church. And Olajuwon as well, he appreciates the church going experience. So they both decided, or they were talking about, well, how are we gonna, would you raise your child in the church, or would you raise your children in the church? And they both found out that they were on the same page with that they do agree with raising their children in the church. And then Katina went a step further and said, yes, I will definitely be taking my child to church, but then when they get older, it will be up to them if they want to continue going to church. And they also, something else that they have in common is that they both have mothers who survived breast cancer. So later on, they meet with Dr. Pepper, and they tell Dr. Pepper that the fights have lessened. No, excuse me, I take that back. They say that they get over their fights quickly. Not that they've lessened. I don't know. They're probably fighting more than ever. But when they do fight, they both get over it really, really quick. And then Olajuwon also says that, he caught himself one day, they were having a disagreement, they were having a fight, and he was so frustrated with her that he told her, can you just shut up? But then he realized that what he said was wrong and disrespectful. So he calmed down and he apologized to Katina. And he says to Dr. Pepper, at that moment, I realized I can't talk to my wife like that. So there is a lot of growth there in Olajuwon. Katina is not going to really put it all out there exactly what goes on behind closed doors with these two people, because she's very protective of Olajuwon. But I'll just give them the benefit of the doubt that when they say that, they'll have arguments, but then they get over them, really, really quickly. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that that's what happens. Or I'm wondering if it's more so he gets upset, he gets angry. She doesn't really react. So then he feels stupid just yelling at her when she's not really responding. So then he stops yelling and, she's still quiet. And then she's just ready for him to get back to normal. I'm wondering if that's how they fight, how they argue. So they talk about kids, and they want to have kids in 2 years, but Olajuwon doesn't want Katina to be overwhelmed with having to graduate from college with her bachelor's degree, and then being a mother, and then starting her career as a nurse. So in his confessional, when he's talking directly to the producer, he says that Katina should really lock in and concentrate on herself and, do what is best for her. And he says that it is, if it's really really, if there's love there between them, he says he ain't going nowhere. But for right now, he wants her to concentrate on herself. So then the producer says, so you think that she should say no on decision day? And Olajuwon responds with, if you care for someone, you will always look out for what's best for them. So he's implying that anyways, let me just call a thing a thing. Olajuwon, I don't think, really saw it for Katina probably from day one. Definitely from that first week. I don't think Katina is his type. I don't think he sees a future with him and Katina. So he can't be bold enough just to say, hey, I don't want to be with you. This isn't going to work out. This is not what I'm looking for. He doesn't have the guts to say that. So instead, he's going to find excuses of why she should not be with him. And I think this is the reason why he comes off so strong with her, why he would like have these horrible arguments. Like the thing with the app, like I really truly believe that he was just trying to create drama just for her to be so angry at him that she would not want to be with him. That's why I think he was so over the top, why he's been so over the top for a lot of things. I think that he's trying to be like someone who's really difficult to live with just for that, just so that she can be like, you know what, I can't be with him, because he doesn't have the guts, or he probably doesn't want to have that very difficult conversation with her, or he doesn't want to hurt her feelings, because Katina really is a sweet girl to him. Katina is like a ride or die for Olajuwon. And so he sees that. He doesn't know how to convey to her that he probably just isn't really feeling the same. And so he just turns into a jerk, and he hopes and he prays that she's going to be the one to dump him so he doesn't have to do the dirty work. So that conversation, and when he was talking to the producer about, Katina needs to like really do what's best for her, and you know basically not be with him and concentrate on herself, he was crying. He got really, really emotional, because I think he realizes, or he's always realized, that she is a good girl. She is a good woman for him. But he just doesn't really feel anything for her. And like I said before, I think that they have consummated their marriage, but because he doesn't want to look like a jerk on national television, like, you didn't want to be with her, but y'all were doing all of this. I think he's told her not to talk about it on camera. And Katina will do anything that Olajuwon tells her to do. So I don't think it has anything to do with finishing school. I don't think it has anything, because like, come on now. Anybody can finish school, have a child, be a spouse, take care of their husbands. Anybody can do that. It's hard work. Yeah. Because you have people who are, in high school who are doing that. They're going to school, they're working, they're raising a kid, and they're in high school. So why wouldn't Katina be able to do it with the support of her husband? Why can't she graduate in 2 years, have a baby, and start her career? It's all about timing. She can graduate. She can try to start off her career, have her baby, get on maternity leave, and then go right back to working. I don't know, but it can be done. It's not impossible, but he makes it seem like it'll be the hardest thing for anyone to do, is to start their new career and be a parent and also tend to Olajuwon. Now, another thing that I want to mention is that Katina she told Dr. Pepper that when they were talking about, the timeline of when they're going to have kids and how is that going to fit in with her finishing school, she says, I think the conversation was about, it's going to be a lot on her plate, finishing school, having kids, and then, giving Olajuwon the attention that he needs. And she said that she says every man deserves or wants attention, but Olajuwon, it's like more than the average man. So it can be done. I mean, I don't see anything, I don't see him like demanding, maybe as far as like he would want her to be a mom, graduate, start nursing, cook, clean, and do all of that while he just goes to work and comes home and watches TV. Maybe that's what they meant, what she meant when she said, he's a very demanding person, because I'll have to do everything by myself while he does practically nothing. I don't know what she meant by that, but it's like, it can be done, girl. It can be done. Moving on to Lindsay and Mark. So Lindsay says in her little confessional that Mark tells her constantly that she is always too much. She's too touchy-feely. She's too loving. She's too this. She's too that. all she hears all day is Mark telling her how she's just too much and she's not going to make herself less of a woman to accommodate his needs. So they have their meeting with Dr. Pepper, and Mark says that, he can't be like emotionally, he can't be what Lindsay wants, like, because like the times when she wants to be all lovey-dovey and she wants to be affectionate with him, it's hard for him to do that because they just got through having this huge argument and now he has to switch to being the lovey-dovey husband. And he says, I can't do that because our relationship is full of roller coasters. We're constantly up and down, up and down, up and down. So it's hard for me to switch from arguing Mike to lovey-dovey Mike. It's like I can't do it. That's my impression. I could be wrong, but that's what I was getting from him. Like, he can't just switch it on and switch it off. So, and he's always not in the mood to be that way when she wants to be that way. So, Mark says that she's way too playful. He'll tell her to stop and she just won't stop. And it just goes on and on and on. And he gets on his damn nerves. Like, keep your damn hands to yourself. When I say no, I mean no. And so Dr. Pepper was like, okay, so when he tells you to stop, why don't you just stop? And Lindsay lies, bold-faced lies, and says, well, I've never heard him tell me to stop. He's never told me to stop. And then they show footage of him telling her to stop. Stop fooling around, stop touching me, stop playing with me. And it's like, Lindsay, why are you lying about that? So Lindsay tells Dr. Pepper that she doesn't think Mark is the right guy for her because she claims that he doesn't put her first. He doesn't make her a priority. Like, what else? He doesn't have a job. Like, what else is he doing? Why wouldn't he make you a priority? Like, how is he not giving you any attention at all? I think Lindsay is extremely spoiled, and I think she's very spoiled by her dad. And so she expects everyone or every man to treat her like the way her dad treats her, because on their wedding day, we saw how her dad was. It's almost like, Lindsay could do no wrong in her dad's eyes. And, he doesn't call her out on anything. And I think that he probably feels a lot of guilt with what went on between Lindsay and her mother. So I think that whatever happened between the parents, I think the children had to pick a side. And I think that the father probably manipulated his children to choose his side over their mother. And I think that, and I'm probably reading way too much into it because we didn't see the dad that much, but that's the feeling that I got, because Lindsay has hardly anything to do with her mom, and she's like a daddy's girl, and her father's very overprotective, and her father really spoils her. I think that whatever conflict was happening between the parents, the children got pulled into the middle of it, and I think that Lindsay's dad manipulated Lindsay, maybe even the brother, but definitely manipulated Lindsay into seeing it his way, so that she can basically, he didn't want to lose his children to his ex-wife. So, and I think that Lindsay expects the men in her life to treat her like the way her father treats her. So Mark doesn't pet her and spoil her and coddle her the way her father does. And so that's why she's always like, well, he doesn't give me any attention. He doesn't make me a priority. Like, what do you want him to do? Like, what, is he not coming home? Does he stay out all night? Like, is he always hanging out with his friends? Like, how is he not making you a priority when you're not living in the same house? So, and it's possible. I'm not saying that it's not possible. It is very possible to live in the same house, but feel so isolated from your mate, even though you're living in the same house. And maybe that's what she's referring to. But I don't think he doesn't give her any attention because they do things together. But anyways, moving on. So, Lindsay says to Dr. Pepper that she doesn't think he's the right guy for her. And then Dr. Pepper's solution is that Mark needs to be more affectionate and he needs to show her more support. And then for Lindsay, she tells Lindsay that she needs to reduce the pressure. Like, don't always be all up in his face or try to force him to be or to do things he doesn't want to do. Because one of the things that they brought up was, she says something like, oh, he's not the right guy for me because, he doesn't want to do the things that I want to do, or he doesn't really show up for me. And then she says something like, he's not the kind of guy that wants to try new foods. I want that kind of guy, the kind of guy that's willing to try new foods. And then they show footage of Mark stuffing his mouth with things that he doesn't want to eat, or her shoving things in his mouth of things that he doesn't want to eat because he's trying new foods for her. And so that's why I kind of have to take what Lindsay says with a grain of salt, because every time that she would say something that Mark didn't do, they would show footage of him doing that same thing. So Mark says to Lindsay, like, I need to move at my own pace. Like she's trying to like drag him to where she's at. And he's like, I'm not there yet. I need to move at my own pace. And he says, I guess there's like potential there because he says, if I didn't want to be with you, if I didn't think that there was any potential here, I wouldn't be here. I would have left. And Dr. Pepper agreed with him. And so he's like, I see the potential. I see, like he can see that this could be the woman for him because she's proven time and time and time again that she will be there for him. She's a ride or die for him. So he's like, as far as my feelings and my, just let me go at my own pace. And also Dr. Pepper was like, give him space instead of you always like gravitating towards him, being all up in his face, constantly trying to touch him. Let him come to you. Give him his space and let him come to you. But I don't think she can do that. So Mark has a cat, and the cat is very sick, and they took the cat to the vet, and it didn't look good. I think the cat probably had cancer because they talked about how whatever was ailing the cat had spread to the cat's lungs, and the cat was uncomfortable because the cat was in pain. I think the cat's name is JC. JC was uncomfortable because JC was in pain. There was something wrong with his eye. I think he had patches in his fur, and so the vet was like, this is basically the end. We need to, we can do the more humane thing, so that he doesn't have to, like, his last days experience, excruciating pain, and we can, basically put him down. And so they make the decision to put the cat down, and this cat has been with Mark for so long, for so many years. And he was just reminiscing with all of his, like, whatever he's experienced in life, how JC was always there by his side. So it was very, very difficult for Mark to make that decision. And Lindsay was there for him. And I thought Lindsay, again, even though she was trying to be comforting, I thought she was kind of aggressive. She was a little bit too much. Like he was holding his cat and he was very comfortable sitting in the, I guess the examining room of the clinic. He was holding his cat, and here comes Lindsay, and she takes this blanket and she wraps up the cat and she puts the cat in Mark's lap. And then the cat, I guess, wasn't comfortable. So then she, turns the cat over, and it was like, let the man breathe and have this moment with his pet. I felt like she was just too much in his face at this very sensitive time. And she can show support and be there for him without practically sitting in his lap with the cat with him. So yeah, so they have to put the cat down. That was really sad. So in her confessional, she takes him to the woods. They don't go to her childhood home. They go to the woods because she loves nature. And as a child, I guess she would always, run into the woods to be by herself and escape, the chaos in her home. So she says in her confessional that she really hopes that the experts got through to Mark and that he will start choosing her first. And it was like she said nothing about her own improvements. Like, did what Dr. Pepper say get through to you, Lindsay? Are you giving him the space that he needs? Are you making any changes in yourself? She doesn't talk about that. She just talks about, well, I hope that, whatever Dr. Pepper told him, he's going to start making changes. So they're in the forest. Like I said, this was her like her own little escapism, was to run away in the woods as a child. And, the woods meant a whole lot to her. And she talks about her mother. She says that, her mom really wasn't capable of being a mom or something like that. There was some type of trauma there between her and her mom. Of course, we don't have any details, but I guess she has some, a very traumatic childhood. So Mark's childhood home, they go to his home. They don't go inside. They're just outside. And it was very emotional for him because his dad had just passed away. I think the year before or 2 years before, his dad had just passed away. So his father's death is very, very fresh for him. And of course, going back to his childhood home brought back a whole lot of memories. And it was very emotional for him. He's crying, and he was talking about how his dad would sit outside on the driveway and just watch the cars drive by. And his mother would be, sitting out the window inside the house, and she'd be yelling at the dad. And it was a lot for him. And he says that he wants to move back into that childhood home. If he can, he wants to buy it and move back in there. And Lindsay was kind of like, oh, I don't know about that. I mean, we can move back into this neighborhood, but I don't know about moving back into that house. I guess, she wouldn't want him to be surrounded by memories that would constantly like affect him emotionally. You know, I think that's probably what it was, because just by standing in the driveway, Mark he was struggling. He was having a really tough time just by standing in the driveway. So if he would have gone inside, it would have been a whole lot worse. So yeah, so that's Lindsay and Mark. Moving on to Noy and Steve. So they go to Steve's childhood home, which his parents still reside in. And so we see his mother, and she takes him for a tour of the room that he occupied, the bedroom that him and his brother shared together. She shows him his favorite stuffed animal. They go through his yearbook. He was voted best dancer in his high school. And then he plays her the song that him and his friends had produced when they were younger. And it was a pretty good song. She was really getting into it. So his childhood memories are very, very happy. They go outside into the back porch, the back patio, and he talks about, all the parties they had back there, hanging out with his friends, sneaking down the middle of the night in his parents' car. So his childhood was very happy, very upbeat, extremely different from Noy's. So they take dance lessons. She takes him to a dance studio for dance lessons because she says, for her, dancing was her escape. Dancing was her source of happiness. She said that she grew up in a home where she could not express herself at all. They were taught to suppress their emotions as children. And so she had, whatever she would feel, it would come out through dance because she couldn't express it any other way. They couldn't cry, they couldn't talk about their feelings or none of that stuff. So dancing was her way to release herself, to express herself, so on and so forth. So, and Steve does mention the fact that when you go to her social media, there's a lot of stories of her dancing. So it's really, really important to her. And it was just really, really nice to see Steve participating in the dance lessons. Like, he didn't care about if you looked crazy, if you looked foolish, if you looked uncoordinated. He was there for Noy, and he was having a good time, and he was enjoying it. Because we do remember last season when one particular person went to a dance class and refused to participate at all and made her spouse look really foolish. So it was really refreshing to see Steve just throw himself in it. And so she says that the reason why, maybe that she doesn't really communicate deeply with him, like when something is bothering her, it's hard for her to come directly to him, is because of how she grew up and how she was taught to not talk about your feelings, not to show your feelings. So it's still hard for her to be like very open and vulnerable and all of that. So that's why I guess she goes to social media and posts cryptic messages. And she says to him, look, my social media, that's a way for me to show my independence. Not my independence from you or this marriage, but my independence as a human being, as a person, where I can do what I want and not have to worry about suppressing myself. So, he kind of was like, okay, whatever, girl, but you still don't need to be posting any messages about our marriage. So he doesn't have an issue with her being on social media, period. She can have her social media. He just doesn't want her to post messages that can be construed as related to their marriage. So then they do the letters to the younger self. Her letter was really, really beautiful. It was very, very touching. She talks about how she felt like a burden as a child to her parents. She talked about her parents, especially her mother, working so hard that she would come home bleeding. She talked about how, always wanting a better life for herself, for her siblings and her parents, and just constantly this feeling of pressure, I guess, as a child to, I don't know, try to make life better for her family. Just her childhood just seems really, really, it seemed really, really dark. She had a lot of love, but it was just, they struggled a lot. The economic pressures was deep. So Dr. Pepper meets with them, and they talk about Noy's inability to open up, and she relates this back to her childhood, why she can't communicate as openly as she should. Then they talk about the issue of living in separate homes. Now this was quite interesting because Noy wants to be still married but live separately, and to her this is like, I don't know where she came up with this idea, but this is something that she really wants to do. At first, she said, oh, I want to keep not in this episode, but previously, she says, oh, I want to keep my apartment because it was my first apartment that I got on my own. The first time that I ever lived completely by myself. And so my apartment has a lot of sentimental meaning to it. And she made it seem like she was going to keep it, but not live in it. Well, now we find out she wants to keep it and she wants to live in it. I think, and to her, this made sense. And then Dr. Pepper said that she says that she didn't want to sound like a hypocrite because she herself lives separate from her husband. You know, they're still married, they're still together, but they live in separate homes. And so, and Noy was like, you see, it can work. You can have a successful marriage and live in separate homes. I don't think so. I don't think so. And Dr. Pepper did mention that, look, this is my second marriage, okay? This is my second marriage. But with my first marriage, it wouldn't have worked because we were raising a family. So how do you raise a family in separate homes? So Nora was like, yeah, I guess I'm not understanding this at all. Like, why do you want to live? I think it's okay for people who've been around the block a few times. Like, for example, Dr. Pepper, she's been married before. She knows the ins and outs of it all, and she's got this crazy career, this crazy, she's on a TV show, whatever. I can sort of understand with Dr. Pepper, but you're young, newly married. You love your husband because you couldn't wait to tell him that you couldn't wait to say I love you to him. And when he said I love you back, the sky opened up and the angel sang when he said those three words to you. So you make it seem like you're very much into your husband, but now you're talking about how you don't want to live with him. I think this is odd. I think this is really odd. And I myself don't see how you can be newlyweds, young, full of life, and want to live in separate homes. And you also want to have 3 children. I don't see how that's going to work out. And Steve was just kind of like, he really didn't say much. But hopefully he's not going to go with this idea. And hopefully if they do decide to stay together, she's not going to want to stick with that idea. She's going to get rid of her apartment and make a home with her and Steve. If she wants to stay with him. But don't choose to stay with him and then go back to your own apartment and live there, because that's just odd. I mean, it's just too much to even talk about in this video because it's already too long. That's just really odd and crazy to me that you want to be married, you want to still be a newlywed, but live in separate homes. That's bizarre. But anyways, thank you so much for joining me. If you made it this far, I really do appreciate it. On your way out, please don't forget to rate the video. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll definitely talk to you later. Bye.